Shalom Charim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live here as Shabbat has already come to an end pretty much all around the world. But you know, this is kind of like a Shabbat message. But it's also a newsworthy message, and it's something that I feel like that everyone that is listening this evening should take the time to listen. Whether you are religious or not, whether you're secular, whether you're atheist, whether you are Jew, Christian, Muslim, whatever you might be, Hindu, Sikh, Jain, I don't care what it is. I think this is something that we really should listen to tonight, especially the three monotheistic religions. I'm not saying that word right. I never seem to get that right. The three religions, Jews, Christians, and I'm about to say Gentiles. I'm not getting this right. Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Forgive me. All right. My mind is racing as usual, and I'm always thinking way ahead of what my mouth is speaking. I want to really ask you guys a very fundamental question, and I say this in light of the fact that Islamic faith believes that Abraham is their forefather. I know they have a different view as far as who the chosen son was between Ishmael and between Isaac. They believe it was Ishmael. They believe that Muhammad is God's prophet. For the Christians and the Jews, they both believe that Isaac was the promised son, and they believe that through him they came the prophets for the Jews, Moses and many others, Jeremiah, Isaiah, etc. And of course, the Christians believe the same, but they believe that Yeshua, or Jesus, is the Messiah. But regardless of which one of these have this particular belief, there is one thing that still stands true between them all, and that is the very passage that I will share with you here over in the book of Genesis. And I forget exactly which chapter. I think it's chapter 18. This is where Abraham is having a conversation with one of the three angels that come to him. But the one that stays with Abraham, he is not going down with the two angels that go down to Sodom that are bringing about judgment. But there is the very one that knew that Sarah laughed within herself, etc. This angel here, Abraham begins to speak with him about how he would react if there were 50 righteous in the city. How would he deal with this? How would judgment come about? Peradventure there be 50, or if there be 45, or if there be 20, or if there be 10. And I want to read that just a moment, and then we're going to take a look at Syria. We're going to take a look at Yemen. We're going to take a look at Iran. But we could also keep these things in mind with Ukraine and other different troubled spots around the world. Even North Korea, for that matter. And I want to appeal to you for just a moment and really think about what I'm about to share with you. All right, so pause, take a deep breath, and I'll do the same. And we're going to go into this, all right? As we read here, verse 23, and Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Because Sodom truly had become a very evil and wicked city. And yes, Lot, his nephew, his wife, their children, his two daughters, that is, were living down there. There were 4 souls living in this city. And so Abraham is concerned about there being more righteous souls in the city. And of course, he's asking this angel. And of course, the angel is the spokesman for the Almighty. So therefore, I title the broadcast this evening, the Almighty would spare the righteous and would not take them out with the wicked. All right. So he says, peradventure there are 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou indeed sweep away and not forgive the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? Now notice, forgiving even the place, forgiving the city, because there's 50 righteous that are living there. This isn't just destroying Sodom. This isn't just taking out the 50 and then destroying the city. He's saying, will you forgive the city if there's 50? For the sake of that 50, would you forgive them? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, that so the righteous should be as the wicked that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do justly? So you realize this is not just an ordinary man that he's speaking here to. He's not just an ordinary angel. Now, we know that the angel is more than just a regular angel. I think the word angel, when it talks about the three strangers, maybe we misjudge this in saying angel, because we have in the very next verse, Veyomer Yehovah im imatzah. Okay, and the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will forgive all the place for their sake. So, the Almighty Himself is willing to forgive all of Sodom if there be 50 righteous in that city. Keep this in mind. And Abraham answered and said, Behold, now I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, who am but dust and ashes. Who am I but dust and ashes? Peradventure there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for the lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find there 40 and 5. And he spoke unto him yet again, and he said, Peradventure there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for the 40's sake. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry. I will speak. Peradventure there shall be 30 found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And then it gets all the way down till he finally gets to 10, verse 32. And he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the 10's sake. God would keep the city standing for the sake of 10 righteous souls. Now I want to ask. This is a question I want to present before President Donald Trump, past presidents Obama, past President Bush, President Jimmy Carter, President Bush H.W. I want to ask this question to Prime Minister Netanyahu, the former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and any other Prime Minister of Israel that may be living today. I would ask this to the Saudi king of Saudi Arabia, to the Turkish President Erdogan. And I'm naming these figures because these are the very men that have started these wars. We did not see Russia coming down to Syria to start a war in Syria, did we? No. Russia never came and started the war. President Bashar al-Assad did not instigate the war in Syria. So I'm naming these other leaders. French President Macron, also the French president before him. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany. The British Prime Minister. The very lady that they have there today, Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of Britain, etc. All these world leaders that have been involved in overthrowing in the Middle East and the wars all the way back to the Iraqi war, including the overthrow of Libya, Egypt, and currently today in Yemen, where the annihilation of the children that are going on and the women in this country here as well. I'm calling upon every one of these world leaders, and I want to know, are you better than the Almighty Himself? Answer me this. Because your actions you have taken upon yourself to destroy entire nations based on lies. It was that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, but they did not. Prime Minister Netanyahu also said that they had weapons of mass destruction and said they had proof to it, but they did not. You say the same about Iran. Now, I'm not saying that there is not wicked people in these cities just as it was in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah. There were wicked men in that day there, but there was not 10 righteous in the city at that time. All right? So we can look at this and see that the angel brought judgment, but he did remove the righteous from there before the judgment fell. That was Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters. Although we do read what happens to Lot's wife. But I am saying this to you. I'm trying to please to your intellect, to the spiritual wisdom that you should have. And now I also want to address this to the pastors, the ministers in America, to the evangelical groups, to the Catholic priest. I want to say this to the imams around the world. I would like to address this to the rabbis around the world. Have you ever considered this yourself? Because you, all 3 of these religions and your leaders, you all claim Abraham to your father, and you all know the story well. Now, I'm going to share with you several articles as I say with you. What side will you take on this issue? Will you stand with the Almighty Himself, whom Abraham spoke to, and would you forgive the city and have mercy for the sake of the righteous that are living there or were living there? What side would you be on as Christians that are supporting right now President Trump's war on terror around the world, which actually began with Israel? I say this because my own people themselves, my own people in Israel also need to learn some serious lessons, because you did not spare my people that were living in Europe when Hitler was willing to throw them all out of the nation. He just wanted to get rid of them. But when you... The Zionists cooperated with Nazi Germany in turning your cheek while the Germans annihilated the Jews. You should go to Patreon and look at our message from yesterday as I read from the rabbis themselves that spoke about even the Zionist leaders in Israel that took and sunk the ship to kill the Jews that were on there. It's no different than what's happening in the world today. Now, here, I take the very paper Haaretz. One case of many. World Jewish population on the eve of the new year. 14.7 million Jews. All right? Now, I'm not going to get into the number of the Arabs, because right now those nations that are battling against the Middle East right now, they don't care very much for the Arabic people to begin with. But it is needless to say there are many Arabs that are living in these nations. But I am looking to this because the nations that are warring against Syria are mainly professed Christian and Jewish nations. So I am speaking to you based on these issues here. So I'll be dealing with different numbers. Jewish agency figures reveal that 8,500 Jews live in Iran. By the way, this article was September the 9th, 2018. 8,500 Jews live in Iran. Okay? So if you believe the Jews are the righteous people and you're willing to go to a war with Iran right now and kill all the people there, or practically annihilate the population, if God was here today speaking to Abraham, and Abraham once again asked about Iran and said, God, I know the city is wicked, but if there happens to be 10 righteous in Iran, would you spare the city for the sake of that 10 righteous there? Would you forgive them and spare it for that? He's already given you the answer. Yes, he would. He would do it for 50. Started with 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, 10. Yes, he would. But right now, the leaders of Israel nor the United States are willing to forgive nor spare the city for the sake of the 8,500 Jews that are living there. And by the way, I'll come right back to this article in a second. As far as Christians in Syria, Wait a minute, that's the Syrian one. Let me go, it's a different article here. Iran. By the way, according to this article right here in Iran, USA Today, there is approximately 12,000 to 15,000 Jews that remain in Iran. Okay, just their article there, right? Now, the state of Iran in 2018, the Christian community is believed to number, and this is a growing number continually. I think it was in 2016, I think it's 500,000. Let's see. Reported just last year in the Christianity's growth is exceptional rate. Fox News noted in 2016 the number of Iranian Christians attending secret houses, churches could be as high as 1 million Christians. 1 million in Iran. So my Christian friends all over the globe of the world, if you believe that the Christians are the righteous, and the Bible does say, if the righteous scarcely be saved, where will the ungodly and sinner come in? If you believe that they are considered the righteous of the earth today, and we have 1 million Christians roughly estimated living, that was in 2016 in Iran, what would be the number today? Yeah, and of course, yeah, they have to do it in hiding. Would you spare the city for their sake? Would you not encourage your president to say, well, there's got to be another way? You know, I could understand if Iran attacked Israel or if they attacked the United States, there'd be nothing for either one of these nations to put a stop to that attack in a moment's notice. But to do a preemptive strike? Are we better than the Almighty Himself? All right, and this is Iran. I'm dealing with Iran right there. All right, now let's go back again. Now, in Syria, or let's look at this, Morocco, 2,000 are living in Morocco, 1,000 in Tunisia. Well, that's a little bit too late on that, but there's still 1,000 Jews living in Tunisia. But, you know, under President Barack Hussein Obama, when you had the Arab Spring and you turned the world upside down for those Jews that were living there then, did you ever consider that there were righteous living in Tunisia? What about the Christians? They far outnumber the Jews. But right now, there's still 1,000 there. There's fewer than 500 between Syria, Egypt, and Yemen. I wonder why. I wonder why that is. You know, let me show you why. All right. The estimated deaths in Syria's civil war of the activist groups vary between 364. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That was the wrong. Actually, I had a figure for the Christians. And I think the Jews as well. Let me just see. I think as far as in the Christians, it was 500,000 Christians died in that war. And let me relook at the number I have on this one right here, because I was looking at how many Jews died in the Syrian Civil War. Okay. Okay. All right, I had not finished pulling that figure up there, but needless to say, there were many that died in that war. Christians themselves as well, and I actually... Let me see if I can get the statistics on this real fast, if you just bear with me. I just want to see if the Times of Israel is showing the breakdown of this. I know the numbers are very, very high. The point that I wanted to make on this, though, is the fact that we've had nearly anywhere from 350,000 to 500,000 Syrians have been killed. Of those numbers, the Christians' numbers are extremely high. And let's see, okay, maybe we have the breakdown here. Regime soldiers, we have the children, the women, militia fighters, Islamic jihadists, fighters from other sources. All right, they're not breaking it down like that. I'll try to get that number together for you guys later on that. But I do know that the Christian community, the numbers and the deaths there are in the thousands. And no doubt Jewish believers as well. Very high number. My point is, though, today to you, is did the leaders of the United States or Israel or Saudi Arabia or Europe, did you ever take into consideration the righteous that were there? Probably not. I highly doubt it, right? So, in light of all these facts, as we look at this and we see, here's one of the articles right here. The Christians that were living in Syria were 1.25 million in 2016. Now there's less than 500,000. Now, granted, many of them were exiled. And I don't remember if they put the numbers of those that were died in here. They're in 104 different countries around the world now. And I'm trying to see if we have any of the death tolls in here of what they show in here. But the point is there have been thousands. I've read where entire villages of Christians were wiped out. What about the righteous? We could look at Yemen. Yemen used to have a very large Jewish and Christian population, totally wiped out. Remember, back in the early 50s when Israel brought a lot of the Yemenite Jews to Israel, not all of them came. And I did find some statistics on that, but I was trying to put this together kind of quickly this afternoon, and I don't recall if I had everything pulled up, and I don't see it right off the top of my head here. I know I was looking at them and I probably forgot to save that one and moved on. But the point is there's still many of them there today. But yet the United States continues to fund the Saudis and to bomb the Yemenites over there, killing Christians and Jews there as well. So what about the righteous? Do they not matter? Are we really better than God Himself, who would actually forgive and spare a city for that sake? You know, I was thinking earlier today, that Israel is supposed to be a light to the nations. But I do not think that God had any intention for us to light the world up with bombs as to be in the light that we would show the world. And yet we have armed the jihadists, the United States, Europe, and even Israel, admitting in the Jerusalem Post of giving small arms weapons to the different militant groups that are on the border. Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, who have been known to wipe out Christian communities. So where is the righteousness in all of this? There is none, is there? I think about the scripture in Isaiah 57 when I think of this. The righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to heart. And godly men are taken away, and none consider that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. Think about it. Think about it when we stand there and we look at the leaders that are over whatever nation we are from. Because I know those of you that are listening here today, you have leaders from all over the world that are listening. There are Americans that are listening that you're looking to President Trump. And President Trump has a lot of warmongers in his cabinet that are saying down with Iran. But yet in Iran, we know we have minimum 8,000 Jews living there today and an estimated 1 million Christians. Can there not be mercy? Are we really better than the Almighty? If Iran really was, if we did not instigate a war with Iran, and then Iran attacked Israel, or another country just outright totally tried to start obliterating these other nations, then there is a justification. But we don't have that case as of yet. So why don't we judge righteous judgment the way God does? Because God says here in Isaiah 57, the righteous perisheth and no man layeth it to heart. Because why? You don't remember what God said to Abraham and what Abraham said to God. That's why you don't lay it to heart. You're not remembering what he said to do. So therefore, the righteous perisheth. It's what happened in Tunisia. It's what happened in Iraq. You know, I need to do a little bit better on the numbers here, laying this together for you. Just like in the case of the Holocaust. When the first Prime Minister of Israel, Ben-Gurion, and Moshe Sharit, who was the foreign minister at the time, when they'd been smuggled out by the Catholic Church, and yet Rabbi Weizmandel had sent letters and was pleading with them. Bomb the tracks that lead to Auschwitz. Gave them detailed maps. But the Zionists had already made a deal with Hitler. So he allowed another 1 million Hungarian Jews to go to the death camps. So many things happened you would not believe. The nation of Israel was built on the blood of Jews. I stand for my people. And I stand as a Jew, I stand for my Jewish brothers and sisters. As a Christian, I stand with the Christian people, but I stand for the righteousness. And I say to you that if my God, and your Father was able to tell our father Abraham, and I say this to the Arabic listeners as well, you claim Abraham to your father as well. And he said, if there be 10 righteous in the city, would he not forgive the city of the sins for their sake? And stop the wars. Stop supporting it. If you're on a political movement, write your congressmen, write your senators and tell them you will not support these wars anymore. Because when you stand on them, you're standing opposite of what God said. And then we're seeing Isaiah 57. The righteous perisheth, and no man lays it to heart. We've forgotten. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Stand with us. Stand with what the truth really is. Support the ministry. IsraeliNewsLive.org. We need your help because, believe me, there's not many people that like supporting the truth. Stand with us, won't you? Our website, IsraeliNewsLive.org. Don't forget also, guys, and I'll just quickly throw this in there for you. By the way, I put it on here. Times of Israel. Plundered Syrian Torah scrolls said held by Al-Qaeda-linked rebels. You know what's funny is there's an article that came out about 8 months ago. All these scrolls were missing, and they're blaming it on the Assad government. But I'm thinking to myself, they never even paid attention that they actually wrote it already that the Al-Qaeda members had the scrolls. Ended up putting them on the black market and selling them. Anyway, listen, conference that we have coming up. And we are seriously looking at doing a conference in North Carolina in the next couple of weeks. Oop, I did it the wrong way. But we're looking at doing possibly a conference in North Carolina. I'll try to throw something up on IsraeliNewsLive.org on our website. Conference, North Carolina. If we can get 30 people committed for us to come there, we're looking at possibly, I forget exactly where, but it'll probably be in the mountains of North Carolina somewhere. I think it's north of Asheville. Not sure exactly. I don't know of a place yet, but I'll put a little post up about it. If there's enough people that can come there to where we can cover the cost to make that trip, we'll definitely do that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. By the way, though, and going back to the Kansas conference, 48 days until we actually have that conference there. Conference.IsraeliNewsLive.org is how you get there. If you can't remember that, just go to IsraeliNewsLive.org. You'll see the Kansas conference. Click on that link. It's hyperlinked in there. It says the website's already up. Click on the hyperlink. It'll take you straight there. And you can reserve your seats there inside the website here. Don't forget, we have Dr. Steve Pigeon speaking there, my wife and myself. It is a one-day conference. It'll begin early in the morning, going all day long. A lot of information, a lot of things will be shared with you there that will open your eyes like never before. I'm Steve Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Erev Tov. Shalom, shalom. In a world of Ein Shalom.